Welcome to Incessantly Seeking, where we discuss the pursuits that drive our lives with a new guest every Friday. I'm your host, Dan Feuerriegel, and today we're discussing the pursuit of the job. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Incessantly Seeking. Today, we're here with Dan Feuerriegel, which is a friend and a lovely actor. We worked together on a short film that I wrote and produced and directed called December. Did a fantastic job. It's on my Instagram if you're curious and take a look at it. However, Dan has a prolific actor career. He was one of the hunks in Spartacus, which is definitely a favorite. I recommend it. And now he's welcomed into the soap opera world, gracing his presence with Days of Our Lives. So if that's a show that you love, please make sure that you check him out over there. Today we are talking about what pursuits that drives our lives. And, Dan, I really want to hear what that's for you. As actors, I think we're always chasing that next gig, the next opportunity. But what does that mean? Why is that important to you?
Well, I think with a lot of people, it's when you're pursuing your dream, it kind of feels like getting the next job becomes part of your identity and it becomes your purpose. And it's a very fine line that you skim with that because it could have like it could have dire consequences if you're not getting the jobs, then you start to take that personally. That's definitely something that we were just chatting before we recorded this, like the last time we spoke, that I was in a bit of a rut and I was scared, wondering when I was going to get the next job. It's the same with I think 99% of the actors in this industry, and it really is a difficult thing when you pin like a physical job on your state of being, like your well-being and all that sort of stuff. And so what drives me is the love of it. Now, it hasn't been like that all the time. Definitely in the beginning, it was absolute love. It was excitement. I could see myself doing it. I had so much fun doing it. It was just, you get to be a kid on stage or in front of the camera, and it was just a phenomenal feeling as this kind of sense of freedom. And then you get into the business world of it, and that's what can slowly erode your self-esteem and your purpose. And so the thing that I need to find now is the drive is the love of the game, a love of the performance, and the love of being on set. Like I was on set yesterday for days, and I was just sitting there kind of going, this is just so much fun. Like it doesn't feel like work. And I think that's the most important thing for me is you have to make it not feel like work. Even though it is, and you do have to work hard to get where you want to go. But the drive for me is the love of it, and to also be proud of your accomplishments. Even if you're not where you say you want to be, have a look at where you've come, what you've achieved, and be really, really proud of that and grateful for that, because then that prevents you from being bitter about not being where you are. At least these are the things that I'm learning, and it's taken me a long time to learn them, and I'm still learning. So it's a never-ending battle, shall we say?
Listening to what you're saying. So let's go back to young baby Dan thinking about what he's going to do with his life. And you decide that you love acting. I
Yes.
think it's what you said that it was about the play, about, being a kid and feeling alive. So do you think that your love for this craft came from this excitement for play?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Ever since I was a little kid, and I think this is the same with every kid, is just the imagination just runs wild. I mean, that's what we are. Like as we're growing up, that's what we have. We have the imagination, and our minds are just this expanded, beautiful thing. And I remember I would be in my backyard. I would be making movies in my head and reenacting the movies in my head. I remember like doing movies about like sequels to Jaws and sequels to Alien franchise. And I don't know how old I was, like maybe like 7, 8, who knows? But that was, I just absolutely loved it. I did a play in grade 7. Um, it was a Villanova College, an all boys school, and we did a musical called Monsters. And I played Vermin, which was this kind of witch character. And like I tried to get my mom to find photos of it. Like I'm all in white paint and like black lipstick, and I've got long black hair, wearing heels and all this sort of stuff. And I was a really good singer back then as well, and I loved it. It was just so much fun playing. But the, I got my first taste of a little bit of, that kind of competition where I didn't get the lead, but and I was a bit like, but then you just enjoy it anyway for the process. And so I found myself when I got into high school that kind of got pushed to the side because I was playing sports, and it was like and the arts wasn't necessarily cool, and it was an all boys school. So it was all this kind of, be tough and be manly and everything like that and be friends. And so that kind of dissipated, and I didn't do any more drama stuff at all. I kind of focused more on sport. And then um, I graduated school. I was actually studying to become a vet. I wanted to do vet science because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I loved animals as well. And I did that for 6 months. It wasn't actually a vet course; it was the course to get into vet science. And so I did that for 6 months, and I realized it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I can't sit in a room and study. I couldn't be in a lab. It just wasn't me. I was just so much more extroverted in that capacity. Um, because I was naturally kind of a bit shy, a little bit tentative, a little bit kind of insecure. And then I was watching the movie Varsity Blues with my friends. And there's a sequence where, they're like at the end when they're playing football, and John Voight's no longer watching them, the coach, and it's all about them. And Foo Fighters' My Hero comes on, and I just got all these goosebumps, and it just kind of felt like the and I had all these images of, oh my God, I would love to be in this film and just doing what they're doing and just watching it and being proud of myself and my family being proud of myself. And I was like, that's it. The magic came back again. I was like, that's what I want to do. And I auditioned, or I thought about auditioning for the acting school in Brisbane at QUT, the creative arts industry there. My friend, who was also an actor, was like, "Oh, dude, you can go for it, but you probably won't get in. They only pick like 12 people." I was like, "Oh, okay." And we ended up both auditioning for it. And I just had this beautiful, I guess, naivety, but also this confidence. Like I was 17 years old. I started to feel more comfortable in my skin and a bit more confident with the way I looked, and I was working out. And so there was all that was coming into play. And I got through. I had this confidence and just got through. I remember my first time I got the monologues that we had to do. I was just in the mirror. I was working out every scene and every line that okay, I'll do this, and at this point I'll do this. And it was very, very, um, very, very planned, which isn't necessarily how we kind of go about it now. But that's what I did because I knew nothing about it. And I got all the way through. I got in, and kind of the rest is history. And it wasn't until I got until moved down to Sydney and got into the real world where the whole business aspect and all that sort of stuff came into play. And but that play and that kind of love and it is the reason why And so over my whole career, it's, as you know, it's like this. It's like this. Sometimes it's like this, and it stays down there for a long time, and then you get like a little bit up and then down again, a little bit up. And it's been hard to maintain that love and been hard to maintain that joy for it, because you're letting the other stuff and the rejection and this um and the fact that it feels out of your control, that somebody else is deciding whether or not you can do what you want to do, um, is kind of hard. But now I'm learning to just feel the love, sit down, be grateful, be in the moment. It sounds cliche, but it works, and that's definitely what it is. And I also want to bring about how I was when I was auditioning. That kind of just beautiful naivety and just confidence, and just knowing that, yeah, I'm going to do this, and um, keep that going for like almost every aspect of life. So
Um, I think it's so important to talk about a little bit of this mental health, and not just as actors, but in life in general. Um, there is this support that you have being home in Australia. For those of you who didn't pick it up from that story that Dan just shared, being remote from your family. Do you find that really impacts the way that you reacted to your ups and downs?
yeah, definitely, because there's nothing like being able to go and hug your family. It's also my lifelong friends. That's
Hmm.
another difficult one. It isn't just the family, it's the friends, it's the community that you have, it's the familiar areas. And I still miss all that. Um, but I have a habit of kind of keeping when I'm down to myself, which is kind of what I've been like since I was a little kid. And that is also something that I need to work on as well. Is it because it kind of because I was like that from a very young age. Is I didn't want to bother anyone. I didn't want to disturb, like, be inconvenient to anyone. That I kind of coped with that by kind of saying, well, what I'm feeling and what I think isn't important. So you kind of like keep yourself down. And so the hard part was when when I was feeling down, I generally tended not to ask for help. I didn't reach out, and so my parents would, unless it got super dire, then I would probably reach out to my parents, or my parents would just know that something was going on, and so then I would talk to them. I remember one time I just in when I was in Sydney, I flew to Brisbane on the hour and a half flight, and I got to Brisbane and surprised my parents. Like, "What are you doing here?" And then they could just tell that something was on, and I just remember like that night breaking down crying at the dinner table. And it was just like I just needed to just get away, and I needed to like have fun, and that's also saying how much importance I put on getting a job. And this is where the challenge and the balance is of like, yes, it's important to get the job and you do what you want to do, but you need to work out like um, other things that are important to you. So you not getting that job isn't that big of a deal. And so this is the challenge for all that. But being away, I've been away from my family since about 21 years old. I moved away, and like I was in Sydney. I did a job in New Zealand, then I've been in America for about 8 years. And whenever I go back, it's harder to leave because we're all getting older, and you just want to be with your family, you want to be with your community, and it's also hard as well because a lot of my best friends are all over the place in Australia. So I'd have to fly there, and I have to fly there, and have to fly there, and so um, it's it can be tough, but um, you just have the thing out of all this is acknowledging that as minute of a thing that you're going through that you think in regards to the rest of the world, it's still yours, and you should not be afraid to kind of just ask for help. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. And to respect and know it's like, no, no, it's okay. You're allowed to feel this way, and you're allowed to ask for help, and you're allowed to be a little bit upset about this. You're allowed to, because I think it's worse when you're like, no, I'm not supposed to feel like this. I'm supposed to do this and suck it up and be a man and all this sort of stuff. And it because I've been like that since a young age. It's kind of interesting, because what I've accomplished being like that, imagine what could be possible if I was completely open and vulnerable, and being proud and grateful of who I was and what I was going through, like from an early age. So it's interesting, and these are all things that I'm discovering, especially this year, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that I've got a consistent job, which is what I've wanted. And then once you've got that and that challenge is over for the time being, you're like, okay, and then you're with yourself, and you realize there's all these things that you've neglected for the longest time, because the whole time, the whole 8 years or whole 20 years you've been doing this, you've been trying to get the job, you're trying to get this job, trying to get this job, trying to get to this place, trying to get this place. You get this job. Okay, now I want to get this job. And now that I've got like a consistent thing for a bit, and also me getting older as well, you sit down and go, oh, there are some things that I should probably talk about and probably should need to deal with. Um, this pandemic as well, everybody kind of being by themselves and locked away, and the human connection isn't as strong because people have been kind of kept apart. That contributes as well. So, yeah.
And it's so important to talk about that. And that was kind of the idea of this podcast, is like this
Mm,
incessant pursuit of something that then we look at it and we wonder, is this the end of it all? Right? Like you're saying, and I love that you share that with us, and it's personified in your story, this pursuit of the next job. I caught myself, when the pandemic hit, and then there was no more pursuit. And what do? There's no job to be had. Like there was
yeah.
no shooting happening. There's no production. There's no next opportunity. What do you do when that's stripped away from you? And for me, it made me realize how much time I was spending in that endless pursuit of something. So I
Mm,
was living in the trying and not in the doing. And I love that you share that now that you're doing, you're no longer, trying to get the job, how things have changed, how perspective has changed, and now you're left with yourself and what is next. Once you attain that one thing that you need, that one job, that one survival thing, okay, that's taken care of. And that's obviously more than just a physical, a roof over your head and pay your bills and do the job you love. But like you said, oh, now I feel more confident. Now I feel like, the turning down of auditions over and over again, it does something to your self-esteem. And now you're in a place that you're beyond, you're past those challenges, right? And I think that's really great to share. And it's important to bring that up in general. I think people have this idea that not just people like us who move from a different country and have to learn a new language, a new culture, a new friendships.
mm,
There are people we grow up with that becomes your family. And then you get here and you have to meet a whole new set of people. And some of them do become family as well. But there's nothing like that understanding of the people who saw you grow up.
yeah.
There's a sense of going home, to where we come from, and just they know you. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to tell them why the X, Y, and Z, or even speaking a different language. For me, when I get to Brazil, it feels like I'm breathing again. I finally am speaking my own language again. There's a sense of like, oh, I don't have to worry about them misunderstanding my behavior because I grew up in this culture,
Yeah.
and things
Yeah.
like that. And I think that it doesn't have to be such a huge leap. People who move from Ohio to LA or Nebraska to New York to try to chase whatever it is that they're trying to do with their life also feel it. And we're in these big cities isolated. And COVID really showed us all that we're more, I think, human beings as beings than we thought we were,
Yeah.
and how much we need family and human contact, and all those things. So I love that you said that this consistent pursuit of the next job, that has been something that I think plagues everyone who's a freelancer, not just actors in general, but producers and directors and anybody that works in the gig economy.
Yeah, and also going along with that, it's like, so when you're consistently going after the next job, or you get the job, and then now you're thinking of like, okay, what's next? What do I do next? It's like, well, then, because everyone's kind of like, I want to be successful, I want to be successful, I want to be successful. It's like you get a job and you're doing this, but then you're like, okay, now I want this or I want that. It's like, well, then what is your definition of success? When is it enough? Like when are you going to sit there and go, I've done it? Because that's the dangerous kind of thing about it all, is like you're never satisfied. You're never fulfilled. You're never grateful because, and this might be a combination of just how we are in regards to, we've constantly, that's been our job, is to constantly try and get a job. And so when we get the job, our purpose of constantly getting a job is no longer there. And you kind of feel a little bit like, well, this is weird. My purpose for 10 years of trying to get to this place is no longer there. Oh, no, I'm supposed to be continuing to do this. And so it kind of makes you go, you'll never be satisfied. And that's the thing that I definitely have been learning, is to just kind of, stop and smell the roses and be like, look where I have come. I'm so grateful to be here. And you'll probably find when you get into that frame of mind that that's when other things kind of come into your life, because you're not looking for them. Like if you believe in all that energy stuff of like, if you're constantly trying to get a job because you notice that you don't have a job, then your whole purpose is to notice that you don't have a job, and you'll continually just try and get a job. But if you notice and be grateful that you have a job, then the universe is like, well, that's what you want. And so you'll constantly have a job, if you like to go down the metaphysical and all that sort of stuff. But that's what I've been, is to just stop, be grateful, be happy. Like there are so many people who would be envious of, who would want to be in your position, and you should have like just the utmost respect for people who feel that way as well, because you've been there and you know what it's like. But also just be so grateful that, yes, I'm lucky, but also I worked to get here, and I'm very, very grateful. Like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And I like that you said the metaphysical thing. I also think it's psychological. I'm a skeptic, so I do read a lot about that, and I'm curious about that. But at the same time, I feel like it's just really psychological. When you are grateful for
Well, it
what you
goes hand in
have,
hand, I feel.
right? Like when you are grateful for what you have and you see the good, then when you go about life, that's how you show up. You show up
Yeah.
happier, you show up more present, you show up more available.
Mm.
When you are in that lack, that's consistently looking for the job and not getting it and living in that lack, then you're grumpy or unhappy, and that kind of really seeps through every relationship that we have, and it starts to mine our own personal like perception of ourselves. And it's interesting, it's very interesting how it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was in the same place before COVID of thinking, oh, I keep auditioning and I'm always so close, and then it doesn't happen, and I'm always on hold, and then I'm left out of hold. And once everything was taken away, and you had to sit down and, in my case, think, is this really what I want to be doing with my life? And the answer was absolutely. And so my perception changed from I don't get the job to, when I do get a job, I get to do this. And I'm so happy
Yeah.
and excited and grateful. And that shift has been really a quality of life change,
Yeah.
that's so big. And for those other people that are super skeptics too, it's not just this idea of like, you pray for things. Like my mother annoys me every day. Like I love her to death, but she's like, pray, honey, everything's going to happen if you pray. And I'm like, no, mom, I have to like wake up and like go do things so that I can get the things that I want.
Mm,
If
mm.
I sit at home and pray, they're not going to happen. But at the same time, like I understand this idea of like, okay, you need to know where you're going and having the gratitude for the steps, like you're saying, that you get to have. So
Yeah,
it
yeah,
all kind of goes hand in hand. But
yeah.
for
It does.
you,
I was just gonna
go
say,
ahead.
could like praying is kind of like praying is like faith, and you're praying that you know the divine or whatever you God, whatever you call it, is going to guide you and get you to where you need to go. And if that gives you enough kind of like confidence and like gratitude of like, yes, someone's there helping me, and you go about your life to kind of do what you need to do to get where you need to go, but you know that someone's going to get you where you need to go, then you know what? It's the same kind of thing, if that makes any sense. Like if you didn't pray, but you still had the belief that no, if I do this, I'm going to get there. But just the difference is with praying is if I do this, he's going to help me get there, or she's going to help me get there, or it's going to help me get there. It's the same thing. You're still believing and believing in yourself that, you know, you just think that your stuff, like one way, your efforts will get you where you need to go. And whereas the praying is kind of like my efforts will be rewarded from God or something giving it, or being helping me being in the right place at the right time with the universe and all that sort of stuff. So I
And
kind of
I
see it
think,
hand in hand.
yeah, and faith is so important. And I think that that's like kind of like hitting the nail on the head. But think about that, right? Most people have more faith in an invisible being or God or goddess or whatever it is than themselves, right? If we had as much faith in us that we can get ourselves to where we want to be versus in some kind of invisible being we were told that exists, that might exist or might not exist. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
just saying that, to be a devil's advocate. That's what amazes me. Like, would we all be further and, really showing up in life differently if we have the same faith for ourselves as we put on some other outside entity?
yeah.
Um,
No, it's like what's that saying? It's like, is it like God helps those who help themselves or something like that? It kind of like it kind of feels like it's that. It's like there's this omnipresent, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, is out there giving you what you want, but you're the one that has to give it. Like, we're all gods, or we're all God's people, whatever it is. I'm not too sure. I'm not exactly religious. I mean, I grew up Catholic. I think I was Catholic or Christian. I don't know. I've been baptized in communion and everything like that at school, but I can't remember.
so I think
Um,
that's Catholic. I don't know,
I think
but
it's,
don't
yeah,
quote me
Catholic.
on that.
But like I do read, like I love like a lot of the this like the spiritual books and stuff like that, and I just think it's really really fascinating because you can kind of draw some psychological like power to it, because in like whatever you believe, it then comes down to your faith and what you do with it. Like if you kind of go, I want this, but then you just kind of sit down and do nothing, then the universe or God or whatever you want to call it is like, well, you don't think you're going to get it, because if you think you're going to get it, then you would be taking these necessary steps. And once I see that you're taking those necessary steps, then I will start to go, okay, all right, he or she wants to kind of get there. So then I'll put this in their place and in front of them and this opportunity and all that sort of stuff, if you want to think of it like that. Like you have to like imagine what you could accomplish if you were like, okay, this is what I want to be in 5 years. And you just knew in from the bottom of your heart, there was no doubt whatsoever that you were going to get there. You just had to start and do it. Then you would kind of like you would take the hits because you just knew that you had to take those hits to kind of get there. And that's where I think the power of faith, whether or not in being faith in God or just faith in yourself, comes in. It's just like, no, I'm going to get there. I just like, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know I'm going to get there. So I'm just going to enjoy the ride. And that's the challenge.
That is a challenge, but that's also the gift.
Yes.
So
Yes.
now that here we are, right? We're talking
Yes.
about when is enough jobs? When are we done
Mm.
chasing the next job? So what is that for you?
Oh, oh my God. Um, like this question's been posed to me before. I mean, I have my like bucket list. Like I want to work for Spielberg. That's something that I want to do. I've wanted to work for him ever since I was a kid. Jaws was one of my first favorite films ever, and regardless of like what people think, I love everything he does. Um, like I think I think now for me it's like ticking off things rather than like I've done it. I can stop because I'm not going to stop. I think as like it's the I think it's a positive of you because we're growing as human beings. If you believe in the universe expanding, we're just constantly like wanting to achieve. You look at a kid, you look at a little child, you see the things that the baby does to get where it needs to go. Like it learns how to do this and this and this and this and this, and little kids are growing this and they just do this and they learn this and they learn how to this and they learn how to whistle and they do all this sort of stuff. They're constantly growing and getting bigger and expanding and learning. And so I think um, like a constant pursuit of like doing things is it can be a positive as well. So if I, you know, when I work for Spielberg, that's not necessarily. I'm not going to be like, okay, I'm done. It'll just be like, all right, I've done that. That's awesome. Let's do something else fun. Let's do something else fun. Do something else fun. I think it's the joy and the fun that you need to start having. It's like, okay, I've done this. All right, let's do this. Let's make this. Let's make a podcast. Let's do this. Let's do this. And it's this just fun, creative kind of thing. I think that's the purpose is to just constantly expand on the things that you love. So I don't think there'll ever be a time when it's enough. I mean, I think it's enough when I'm like, I don't like this anymore. It's not fun for me anymore. I've That's when I think it's like, all right, let's do something different. Um, so I'll always be as far as I am right now. I'll always be working for the next bit of joy, like joy in a job, but having that joy the whole time and enjoying the process up to it. And then if it happens, it's like, yay. And then you move on and yay, yay, yay. All the joy just will be like where I am right now for however long. I think you just need
So
to just be in the moment and just enjoy it and love it. And then whatever comes next comes next.
so as long as it's fun, the pursuit of the job continues.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No,
Um,
definitely.
and as we start to wrap up here, I'm very curious of what happened to that friend of yours who told you you weren't going to get into that acting school. Did he get in?
He did actually. So funny thing, like so he was studying theater studies at the school when I was doing the bachelor of I can't remember, it was a bachelor of science. It was some advanced science to get into the vet science. And so he auditioned as well. I got in first. And that was a really awkward day because like he got all the way to the finals with me. We both like were in the final like 25 or 30 people. And I think a week later, I got a call, and it was a really awkward kind of because we were hanging out when I found out, and I'm like, ah, shit. And he didn't get a call or anything like that. And obviously, he was really super upset and really down. And uh, then, like, I think it was about a week later, then he got a call, and it was just like, oh, awesome. He's one of my best friends. He's still in Australia. He's slaying the game. He's got children's books out. He won an international Emmy for a children's television show that he made. Like he's just doing so many awesome things. So I'm very
I
very
love
proud of
that.
him. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love hearing
Uh,
that story. I love that.
yeah, he if you want to go, if you like kids shows, try. It's Australian. It's called Hardball. It's about handball. You know, like handball, the tennis ball. Um, and so definitely go check that out. And yeah, it's just been a lot of fun, and we've been through a lot together and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
I love that. And while we're here, tell us where we can find you or where our audience can follow you, obviously on Days of Our Lives, but in real life
Yes,
as well, for
yes.
more
So
inspiration.
Days of Our Lives, I believe, is on at 1 o'clock on NBC. It's not on at the moment because of the Olympics. It's on Peacock on demand. In Australia, I believe it's Fox Go or on Fox Demand all the time, and then all around the world. You can find me on Instagram at the Dan Feuerriegel. Let's see, Twitter is, I think, at DG Feuerriegel. And Facebook is Dan Feuerriegel. So that's where you can find me.
There you go. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining us today,
Thank you,
discussing the
Luce.
pursuit of the job. I think that's so important. We covered a lot. We covered religion, we covered faith, we covered hope, we covered depression, we covered so much. And I really appreciate your time. I know you're super busy these days.
No, thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Bringing forward an understanding of who Latinas are and how to bring us together in ways that matter to us. At the same time, I will never say that we are equal because we're not.